Free Columbia. Nearly 2 weeks after pro-Hamas supporters set up encampments at New York's Columbia University, the NYPD moves in, removing and arresting protesters who occupied Hamilton Hall. Is this free speech or misconduct? Where are these protests heading and who is behind them? Well, joining us is Jonas. He's a Columbia student and Young Voices contributor. Jonas is also editor-in-chief and founder of the Columbia Sundial Campus magazine. Okay, Jonas, let's get right to it. What do these arrests mean for students like you at Columbia? How did it get to this point?
Well, I think what these arrests mean for the vast majority of Columbia students is possibly a somewhat return to normalcy. And I know that's a controversial thing to say at Columbia, even though, everyone on social media is condemning the police and saying this is not normal because they invited the NYPD onto campus. The reality is a lot of students are just here to study and they want to prepare for their final exams, which begin on Friday. So that's what I'll say about that. In terms of how we got here, it's been months in the making. It especially escalated in April after the Gaza Solidarity encampment got set up, nearly 2 weeks ago. And it's escalated ever since then. I mean, as the university has made clear that it's not willing to divest from Israel, the protesters have ramped up their tactics and continued to camp and continued to protest until finally they decided to occupy the historic Hamilton Hall.
Okay, Jonas, but the demonstrators say they've been peaceful. They only want Columbia to divest from Israel, as you mentioned. But are these protests at colleges and universities around the country more than that? What do you believe is the protesters' end goal here?
Well, first, I'll say that whether the protests are peaceful or not might even be the wrong question we should be asking, because a lot of things are peaceful, but they're still against rules and they're still against laws. And that's exactly what we've seen with the encampment and the protest. Yes, the occupation of Hamilton Hall was mostly peaceful, right? There was only a couple isolated incidents of force being used, but at the end of the day, occupying a building is still unlawful activity. It's still not within the bounds of free speech. It's not protected speech under any code of conduct. That's the first thing we should be saying. And the end goals, I think they've made pretty clear. They won't stop at anything short of divestment. And what divestment means is any company doing business in Israel, especially with the Israeli government. So that includes companies like, Alphabet and Amazon who have deals in Israel. It includes companies like Airbnb, they host homes that are in settlements in the West Bank. But it also includes companies like Shake Shack, which is, we have a location right around campus, and they're like boycott Shake Shack because they're opening locations in Tel Aviv, and they see Tel Aviv as occupied Palestine.
Well, the NYPD police commissioner says professional agitators are involved in these protests. So you're an investigative journalist. So what have you found out? Who's behind this?
Well, certainly there's been a lot of outside influence into this movement. Organizations like the extremist group Within Our Lifetime, which is run by, extremist Nurdin Kiswani, who was spotted on campus a week or two ago. It's also, New York Youth Palestine Movement, right? All these other nonprofits, if you just go on the Instagram page, which is where they do most of their, communication. If you go to the Instagram page of, Students for Justice in Palestine, you'll see that almost every single one of their posts is in collaboration with a couple other accounts. And so it's undoubtable that they have been trying to facilitate the entry of people into campus, into the encampment. And there have been reports as well that there are people that were occupying Hamilton Hall that were not Columbia affiliates.
Well, the protesters say they're not anti-Semitic, yet they're singling out Jews. Pro-Hamas protesters blocked some Jewish students from attending class at UCLA. So how have Jewish students been treated at Columbia?
Not well, that's for sure. And the whole debate that's been raging on at Columbia is that the Columbia University Apartheid Divest, they're the sort of mastermind behind a lot of these, events and protests. They have consistently made attempts to assert that, no, what we're saying is not anti-Semitic, it's just anti-Zionist. And as proof, we have a lot of Jewish people that are supporting this movement, and Jewish Voice for Peace, for instance. And while there is some truth to that, the reality is they have a huge image problem on their hands when they host, when they have as organizers students like Kamani James, who said things like he wanted to go out and kill Zionists, right? These are just calls for violence. There's also people saying anti-Semitic things against Jews, for instance, and as a result, they've had this huge image problem on their hands, and it's not clear to a lot of people um, whether or not they're truly being genuine when they say they're not anti-Semitic.
Well, quickly then, is graduation going to proceed without interruption? What do you expect?
I expect that it will, and I think that they'll be setting up for commencement very shortly. So that's something to look forward to.
Okay, Jonas Dew, student at Columbia University and Young Voices contributor. Thank you. Stay safe.
All right, thank you.